Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. We appreciate your continued support. Thank you for 40,000 subscribers in such a short period of time. Today, I think we have an epic video for you guys. Let's go take a look. We have 4 of the hottest SUVs, electric SUVs in their segment. We have the Tesla Model Y dual motor long range, the Volkswagen ID.4, again, dual motor all-wheel drive long range. We have the Polestar 2 dual motor long range, and we have the Mustang Mach-E dual motor long range. Perhaps you've caught on to a theme here. We've tracked down 4 of the hottest mid-size SUV crossover electric vehicles in the segment. And yes, we've got them all in the same drivetrain configurations, the non-performance extended range all-wheel drive variants. In this video, we're going to see which one you should go for. We're going to break it up into chapters. We'll have, I don't know how many, but a whole bunch. Video is going to be super long, so sit back, strap in, grab some popcorn. And if you feel like you're just interested in one particular category, like charging performance, you know we get really geeky there, you can just use the YouTube slider, select where you want to go, and then you can just watch that section. Thanks so much for 40,000 subscribers, and I hope you enjoy this awesome video. We're starting off the video with pricing, and you know, when we go and try and film these comparison videos, we don't always get to choose the exact cars we want from the manufacturer's brand new things. So this Mustang Mach-E, while it's pretty much mechanically the same as one you would buy today, it's actually a first edition car, which means you can't actually buy one right now. So it's a little bit more expensive than the equivalent, but I'm going to give you both pricing sort of with this same spec. So this exact car was $59,400. It's a Grabber Blue first edition. The first edition gives you a couple things. Originally, it was just the special paint color. Now this is available on the lower trims. You get painted arches, red brake calipers, and then some first edition badging throughout. There's really no mechanical difference between the cars. It was more of a styling thing and a commemorative edition for early Mach-E. So $59,400. But if you went to the dealer to buy one today, equivalently spec'd, it would be $55,800, so almost $4,000 cheaper. But we're starting at most expensive and working our way down with the cars that we have here today. And this one's $59,400. The other part of this conversation I want to have is how you can actually buy the cars, because each car has a different dealership model or direct sales to manufacturer. And well, Ford is probably the most traditional here, along with Volkswagen, where you go to a dealer and buy one. Originally, when the cars were announced maybe 2 years ago now, a year and a half, you could actually pre-order and reserve them online. And then Ford was sort of the liaison, Ford corporate, between yourself and the dealer to help arrange for your order. But at the end of the day, because it's sold through a dealer partner of Ford, Ford cannot sort of have any control over the contractual sale price of the vehicle, which meant some people got discounts, some people were charged over MSRP. And in these days of supply shortages, I'm still hearing of people buying Mustang Mach-E's that are over sticker. Personally, I would never pay over sticker for a car. There's plenty of dealers that will sell you one of these for the manufacturer suggested retail price. And to me, that's a fair number to pay since that's what is on the sticker. So Mustang Mach-E, most expensive car, but still qualifies for the tax credit here. And that's mostly just because this is a first edition. The buying experience, though, varies by dealer because it's all dealer partners, and Ford really is everywhere, which is a nice thing. You know, your servicing, your buying experience is localized to your dealership, and your results might vary. Now we go down to the next least expensive car, which is the Tesla Model Y dual motor long range. If you were to buy this exact configuration today, it would be $58,990. And because Tesla has sold and registered more than 200,000 cars in the US, electric vehicles, you no longer qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. Now, that is just based off of today's information. There's a lot of conversation going on, bills moving around somewhere. I'm not sure how this all works, but eventually one day it's possible that the tax credit will come back to Tesla, and it might even be retroactive depending on the way that it is set to come through. So this will be quite interesting. Your buying experience of Tesla is arguably the easiest because there's no negotiation in terms of pricing. It pretty much is, you go on your phone, you spec the car you want, you sit, go now, Apple Pay your reservation, whatever it is, $100, $1,000, I don't know what it is, and then they give you a call when it shows up. It's super easy. I've purchased Teslas this way before, and it's honestly a great experience. There are some downsides to not having dealerships. there are some upsides to not having dealerships. And I have to say, I think Tesla's really got their sales and delivery process down to a pretty seamless experience these days. Early days, you'd always hear about issues and quality things here and there, but in my experience of purchasing cars and having friends buying them recently, it's honestly been no problem at all. So now to the next least expensive vehicle, the Polestar 2. And this is where, you know, we can't always select the exact configuration of cars that we want. I personally wanted to get a non-performance pack Polestar 2, which doesn't change power or anything like this. It just gives you these really nice Öhlins brakes and nice wheels and I should say Öhlins dampers and Brembo brakes, I believe, on this one, sorry. So then this particular car is $57,400. The non-performance pack, which doesn't change any drivetrain stuff, would be $5,000 cheaper than that, so $52,400. The buying experience of Polestar is really sort of this middle ground between Tesla and Ford. And what I mean by that is the experience very much mimics the Tesla experience where, you know, you go online, you spec your Polestar, there are showrooms and galleries around that you can go and film and take a look at. However, you're actually contractually signing to take over the vehicle from a dealership. Dealerships don't really carry inventory of these cars. They're controlled by the manufacturer, and you really do all of the work with the manufacturer until just that last final step when it's sent to the dealer and you sign the paperwork. My understanding is somehow they've figured out a way where there's no price negotiations on a brand new Polestar. Somehow the dealers have agreed to sell each car at the listed sticker price. And well, I hear it's a great experience. And honestly, we'll talk about availability of all these cars at the end, but I think these are kind of getting hard to get now that people are learning about them. And then we get to the least expensive car here, which is so interesting because this is the most expensive ID.4 you can spec. So this has every option. It's a Pro S Gradient with all-wheel drive. We'll get into all the drivetrain specs and everything later, but this car as it sits is $50,870, and it qualifies for the $7,500 tax credit. I should mention all three of these cars do except for the Tesla. So $7,500 here on this car, which means not only is it the cheapest sticker, but you still get the tax credits, which is just insanely cool. On top of that, it's just a very wild ownership or buying experience, I should say. You know, we have covered ID.4 on this channel extensively. We've covered the ownership experiences from people like my father and family members and relatives who have purchased this car, and friends and even us. And it very much varies dealer by dealer. There are some dealers, specifically in more progressive areas of the country, that know everything about ID.4, can train you on how to use it, can bring you to an Electrify America station to help you activate it. And then there are some other dealers that have no clue. So it's really, again, similar to the Mustang Mach-E, because these are dealerships that are selling mostly combustion cars with a few EVs, unlike Polestar and Tesla. The staffs aren't really totally trained on it. So it requires a lot of research on your side today. I imagine as they start selling more and more electric cars, this will change. But overall, this one is the least expensive car here, and that has to play into sort of our comparison. And you know, it's just, you can't deny the value of that car. 50 grand for a maxed out one. You're in the 40s if you don't get one maxed out, even before the tax credit. Insane. We'll talk about charging too, because each of these cars have their own charging programs in terms of free charging. But I'll just mention now, this one has the most aggressive charging program of 3 years of free unlimited charging on the Electrify America network. We're going to get into that, but just a crazy value. Guys, what are you doing the weekend of November 13th and 14th? Just around the corner, 2021, of course, I will be at Sonoma Raceway for the Holley EV event. Holley is a long-time supplier of awesome performance upgrades for vehicles, and now they're going crazy heavy into electric cars. Starting with this awesome event, you'll see content creators like myself, my friend Rich Rebuilds, Randy Popes, the race car driver, will be there as well. There's going to be a ton of people, and you'll even be able to get your EV out on track. You can choose from driving the road course, the amazing Sonoma Raceway, one of my favorite tracks. I've been lucky to spend a lot of time on that track. There will also be autocrossing opportunities, or if you don't want to go on track and see what else is there, they'll have vendors, a hangout area, and a great way to connect with other EV drivers. So November 13th and 14th, Sonoma Raceway in the Napa area of California. I'll be there. Some of the Out of Spec team will be there. My colleagues are coming. We're going to have an absolute blast. So if you're going to be at the Holley High Voltage Experience, make sure to stop by, say hello. We look forward to seeing you all there. Range. This is everyone's biggest concern when it comes to an electric car, and personally, after living with EVs for the last number of years, it becomes something that you worry about less and less and less as you spend time with the cars. When you have home charging available or workplace charging, all of these cars have more than enough range to get you where you need to go. I wouldn't even think twice about driving any of these cars across the country. And to be honest, I pretty much have, most of them at least, driven them pretty much across the country each. And, you know, range is just a one metric that we're going to talk about, because the next section is going to be charging. And to me, this is where both of these need to come together to form sort of one big section, if you will. So we're going to start with the lowest range car here, and that's the Polestar 2. And this is a 233 mile EPA rated car. Now, you have to quote EPA because this is how they're independently tested by the government. There's two different ways that cars are sort of tested by EPA. The first is the manufacturer submits all of the car's drag, coast down testing, battery pack capacity, efficiency at X number of speed, coefficient of drag, time surface area. You know, a lot of calculations go into this. And then the EPA spits out a number and says, thanks for the info, this is how we rate your car. Certain cars, the EPA will actually call up the manufacturer and say, hey, we need this variant. We believe it'll be the most popular, for example, and we want to test this car physically. So I actually don't know offhand which one of these have been or have not been tested physically by the EPA, but it seems like sometimes the results shift a little bit during this process. Now, we do our own range testing. Myself and my good friend Tom Malogny have created a 70 mile per hour highway range test that we've run each of these cars through, except not the all-wheel drive configuration of ID.4. I'm going to do that later. I'll do it before it goes back to Volkswagen though. And this is what I really care about for range. It's highway driving, cruising down, because the rest of the driving when I'm around town or, you know, doing random errands around, well, these have so much range, I don't care. I just plug it back in at home. Anyway, let's go through the specs. 233 miles here in the Polestar 2, and I believe it's listed that way for the 20-inch wheels or the 19s on the non-performance. I've run this car through the 70 mile per hour highway test. You can see that video on our partner channel, Inside EVs, and it did really well on the highway, actually, like surprisingly efficient cruising right here in this car. Then we get the next one up, which is the Volkswagen ID.4. The Pro S all-wheel drive with the 20-inch wheels, the bigger wheels, is 240 miles EPA. If you spec a Pro, I should say not a Gradient, if you spec a Pro S or maybe even a Pro, I don't remember exactly, but if you get a base one, you get 249 miles EPA. Nearest makes no difference. Pretty much that difference in real world driving can be altered just by driving a little bit slower or faster, depending. Then we get to the Mustang Mach-E. This one's the extended range all-wheel drive. We'll get into battery pack capacities and things like this in the next section, but this car is EPA rated at 270 miles of range. Now, there's a ton of different drivetrain configurations for all of these cars. I'm just mentioning the dual motor all-wheel drive. For example, Mustang Mach-E, I had a California Route 1 rear-wheel drive aero wheel car. That was EPA rated at 300 miles. These things seem to be insanely efficient on the highway. I got like 340 miles once just cruising normally. In our 70 mile per hour test, though, these do about pretty much very close to EPA. I want to say north of 250, 260, 270, somewhere around there. Again, you can go watch that video and see exactly what we've tested the car at in a loop style test that's pretty standardized for one specific use case. I think this car has plenty of range. And then we get to the big dog here. This is the only one with north of 300 miles of range in the EPA cycle, the Tesla Model Y dual motor. This one's on aero wheels, which should help it a little bit as well. And right now, if you were to order a brand new Tesla Model Y, I want to say it's 330 miles EPA in the cycle. Now, Tesla, I believe, is the only one that runs their cars through the 5-cycle EPA test, not the 2-cycle like the rest of them. So the tests aren't really apples to apples. What this should, in theory, do is help with some of the HVAC controls, some of the other efficiencies to get it a bit more range. We consistently find that EPA range for Teslas is pretty optimistic, I think is the best way to say it. In our 70-mile-per-hour highway test, these cars consistently underperform more as a percentage than the other ones to their regular EPA testing. And that's purely just because the cars are optimized for EPA and it's the 5-cycle test. Nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. That's fine. Totally legal. No issue. It's just, it does on the highway, doesn't do what the number says. We'll just put it there. So this particular one, just to get nerdy for our Tesla fans out there, this one's actually a 2020 car. I really tried to track down a 2021 Tesla Model Y. We put together this program in about 8 hours yesterday. So it's a very last minute test. Thankfully, we had a great viewer that let us take his car, but this one isn't the brand new refresh with the new interior and the slightly larger battery pack. This one's EPA rated at 316 miles, 315, 316, not the new 330 number. Either way, this has the most amount of highway range, and in real world testing, it still might go the farthest. I'm not saying it won't. It just, that percentage to where it's rated, they all pretty much go about the same, you know, right around 230 to 270 miles cruising down the highway is about where they all fall. And to me, that's fine. Charging stations are 70 to 100 miles apart. And like I said, wouldn't mind driving any of them across the country with zero planning on a whim. And I've done it. Watch our sister channel, Out of Spec Motoring. You'll see us road tripping these cars all over the world now, not even just here in the US. We have a whole European road trip series that's going live when this video goes up. Now it's time for charging and battery pack stuff, the nerdy things that I love so much about testing electric cars. And you know, you guys know me, I like to get nerdy about battery packs, so bear with me through this. But our sort of educated viewers, our viewers wanting to learn more about the next level deep of EVs, this stuff is what really makes an EV, honestly, buying decision, sort of more important than any other, in my opinion. To me, it's all about the charging, not so much about the range. And really that comes down to the entire car purchase. If a car is a really perfect car, awesome car, but it charges really poorly, then that to me just is like a non-starter. So we're starting here with the smallest battery. Is that what we're doing, Jordan? Yes. So this is the Volkswagen ID.4 77 kilowatt hour usable pack, but 82 kilowatt hour installed. Now the ID.4 is built on the MEB chassis, which is a modular chassis that can be stretched and shortened for different models. If you go back, we've driven the ID.3 on this channel in Germany. We had a great time with that car. Same chassis, just kind of moved around a little bit, and there'll be more cars like the ID Buzz, the bus one coming, will be on a stretched version of this car. What that means is different size battery packs can go in different sizes of these chassis, but the ID.4 is also available with a couple different battery packs globally. Here in the US, we only get one at launch, one right now. So we have the 77 kilowatt hour usable pack, 82 installed. We will also get down the line, probably, it's not been totally confirmed, my guess is going to be like a 62, 63 kilowatt hour installed capacity with a 57 kilowatt hour usable. I think that's what the ID.3 was that we tested, the middle battery pack size in the ID.3. I think that will come when they localize production in Chattanooga with this car. So anyway, pretty good battery pack. Thermal management systems are really strong on this car. Because it's not incredibly fast, we'll get into that when we drive it, and it's not really that stressed, you really don't overheat this car. I've driven ID.4 across the country with multiple DC fast charges, and it keeps itself cool. I mean, 125 kilowatt peak charging rate, that's the big number, right? However, what matters more than the peak charging rate is the curve, how it charges. And on each of these cars, I have a dedicated video on this channel analyzing the charging curve. So I'll just search that, like Model Y charging curve, and you'll find it. And essentially I go through from a 0 to 100% charge and look at how the vehicle ramps down the charging over time. The ID.4 is pretty strong, holds 125 kilowatts from zero, plug in, dead, pack voltage at bottom. It'll pull 125 kilowatts. And then it just kind of sits there until, I want to say 40%. And then it starts to walk down a ledge. This is a car though, you can DC fast charge to 80%. Relatively quickly, it's about a half hour, something like that, and then on to the next. The other thing with charging is this car gets 3 years of free charging on Electrify America. For some people, that will make zero difference into your buying decision because you charge at home. For other people that don't have home charging, that have extra time and don't mind sitting at chargers, That makes all the difference in the world. For me, road tripping, I charge it home as much as possible, but I'm also out on shoots trying to make videos for you guys all the way across the country all the time. That actually adds up to a really huge savings for me. And that's one of the reasons I love this car so much. So I think the battery pack is sized really well for this car. It has pretty good range at 240 EPA. We're gonna see what this thing does at 70 miles an hour on the highway. That will probably already be up by the time this video goes, so check that one out on Inside EVs. Overall, really awesome battery package, great thermal management, and a really solid charging curve. I do want to make one note too. This car supports over-the-air updates, and in a future over-the-air update, we already know that this car is going to have an increased peak charging rate, which means it might go from 125 to 150, 155, 175. We don't know the exact number, but we know that it's going to be increasing from where it is, and that just is going to make it even better. Now we get to the Polestar 2, which is the next one up in terms of battery pack size. It's 78 kilowatt hour installed capacity. Polestar 2 even puts a little badge here so I couldn't forget, which is kind of nice. It says 78 kilowatt hours. But I think it's about 74, 75 kilowatt hour usable, somewhere around there. See, with battery packs, you have to have a little bit of a buffer. If you were able to go all the way up to 4.2 volts a cell on lithium, or all the way down to dead, up and down, that can really stress a battery pack. You know, when an automaker designs a car, you pretty much have to imagine that the worst possible things are going to happen to it, and they still need to warranty the car for its period. So you're never going to get a car, well, maybe not never, we'll get to that, but very rarely will you get a car that just lets you go from full charge to dead to help preserve battery longevity and degradation and things like this. So while all of these cars are still new, we don't have a great idea on how they will degrade over time. This is an area I'm going to be studying and getting more into and providing content for you. I'll say personally, I've owned many EVs over the years, some of which now have 100,000+ miles on them. And yeah, I've never seen more than 10% loss, even with the hardest possible use case, but we're going to get more into it. So this is 78 kilowatt hour installed, 74, 75 usable. That really means there's very little buffer on this car. And the Polestar 2 recommends I want to say 90% daily limit or 80% limit. Either way, one of the most important parts of an EV is being able to set your maximum charge limit. For example, when I go on vacation and I know my car is going to be sitting there, I run the battery down, I charge it to 40 or 50%, I leave it plugged in, and it never charges past. Lithium is happiest at lower states of charge, and the Polestar 2 is a very easy slider that lets you not full charge it. Then when you want to go on a trip, 100% charge this thing and you're good to go. So that is a really nice feature of this car. The ID.4, I actually forgot to mention, it has a similar thing, and Volkswagen has a guidance to charge it to 80% daily and no more. Especially when DC fast charging, just as a general note for EVs, if you're watching this video and new, don't DC fast charge your car to 100% too often. One, it wastes time at chargers because they charge faster when they're down low. Again, watch our charging curve videos. But two, it also really stresses them when you DC fast charge them up top. Volkswagen recommends an 80% daily charge limit. When you go on a trip, set it to 100 and full charge it. Now we get to the Tesla Model Y, another car with a really easily selectable charging limit. You can set this car from 50 to 100% in 1% increments here on the screen. Really great ability to control your battery. And you sort of need to, because this car lets you use almost every inch of the battery pack capacity installed. I want to say, so there's been a couple different batteries in Model Ys, depending on market, depending on spec. This particular one in this car is about a 74, 75 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. The brand new Model Ys that you would be ordering have about an 82-ish kilowatt hour battery pack. But Tesla really doesn't give the gross stated capacity, so the total capacity, and then the usable anywhere on their site. So it's pretty hard for us to know exactly where it is, but what we do know is Tesla really doesn't give you much buffer, which means when it's dead, it's pretty much dead. And when it's full, it's pretty much full. So it's really up to you as the user to monitor your charging on this car to make sure you're not leaving it full charged every day and running it down to zero and leaving it there. I pretty much charge my Teslas to 70 or 80% charge for everyday usability. They've held up unbelievably well over the years. Again, I've owned a few of these things. I cannot say enough good things about their longevity, their reliability. It's a known quantity. These things just last really well. And I have to say that is an advantage over the other cars that are newer architectures with newer powertrains. Tesla's been doing this longer than anyone, and they've been doing an amazing job of powertrain management. That's why we're starting to see a whole bunch of Tesla components get chopped out of cars and put into these really cool creations and rat rods electric conversions. I love it. And now we get to the car with the largest battery pack here. This is an almost 100 kilowatt hour battery pack in this thing. It's 99 kilowatt hours of battery pack capacity. And by the way, I should mention for those who are just watching, all of the batteries are positioned in the same place in all of these cars. They're all in the floor, they're all center mounted, and each of these cars are on bespoke, ground up electric vehicle designs, except for the Polestar 2. The Polestar 2 is built on CMA, which is compact modular architecture in Volvo Group, and that car supports combustion, mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and battery electric. Here though, ground up EV, such a big deal for Ford. And I would say Ford is probably the most conservative when it comes to battery pack capacities and longevity. I would say they're super, super duper conservative. And this is a 99 kilowatt hour installed, 88 kilowatt hour usable. Ford claims they will send an over-the-air software update soon to open up all of the cars to 91 kilowatt hour usable capacity, which will increase the range slightly off of 270 miles on this car, which is cool that they can do that over the air. Yeah, but the thing with this car is the charging. And if you know anything about me and road tripping Mach-E's, you know the charging curve is a little bit aggravating, I would say. So this car is rated at a peak rate of 150 kilowatts. And I know I forgot to go through the Tesla, so I'll get over there in a second and walk you through the curve. But this car, oh, and the Polestar actually. So we'll go through charging curves here at the end. But this car, 150 kilowatt peak rate of DC fast charging, but it actually does more. If you plug in at low states of charge with the battery warm and you're at a station that can provide it, this thing will accept over 160 kilowatts. It's pretty fast. Then of course, it starts to ramp down. And the way that Ford does their charging curves is not based off of a set plot of percentage and state of charge and temperature. It's based off of time. Of course, they have those other algorithms in there to prevent you from charging. Of course, if you pull in with a cold battery pack, for example, or too hot of a battery pack, which is pretty hard to do on Mach-E for general driving, you know, your charge rate's going to be lower to adjust for conditions and driving style, of course. But overall, 160 kilowatts, you get like a certain number of seconds and then it just ramps down. And pretty much for the bulk of the charging on this car from 0 to 80%, you're between 90 and 110 kilowatts. So not that fast. And it means that 80% comes along, I want to say in 45 minutes, and a full charge is a little over 2 hours, because as soon as you hit 80% in the Mustang Mach-E, which is going to happen on rare occasions where you need to DC fast charge that high in the pack, it drops to 12 kilowatts. Now, along with that increased battery capacity, we heard Ford is going to move this drop to 12 kilowatts to 90% state of charge. It hasn't happened yet. We haven't had a chance to test it. As soon as we're able to, we'll bring that video to you. So that's the Mustang Mach-E is probably the worst performing here in terms of DC fast charging, above 80%. However, there's another sneaky competitor here that doesn't charge that great, and that's the Polestar 2. And this also goes for XC40 recharge, so the same powertrain battery pack systems. This car, again, quoted at 150 kilowatt DC fast charging. And in my testing, this car has done 150 kilowatts from 0 to, I want to say, 9%. And then it was at like 90 something all the way through, and it was over 2 hours to full charge at 0 to full. However, there is a new software update rolling for the Polestar. My friend Chris Rifa in Norway already has it, and it seems that on the new version, I want to say, I don't even know what it's called, but the new Android operating version, we'll get into the UI, I'll show you kind of all that stuff in a little bit. It seems like this is actually charging really well, and it also now has a really important feature, which is en-route battery preconditioning for DC fast charging, which means when it's cold outside and you plug in a DC fast charger, it will warm up the battery packs and precondition for that. The Tesla does that. The Mach-E, I don't know if it does that. The ID.4 doesn't, I believe, but the ID.4 always targets a warm battery temperature if it's cold, and now this will actively precondition on the way to a charger. So I would say, based off of my testing, this is the worst charging car. Based off of what I hear from new software, it's gotten better. I don't know how much better. And then, you know, I already explained the ID.4 just sits at 125. This Model Y has a pretty good charging curve, actually. It's 250 kilowatt peak with current software. It does it from about 0 to 30%, maybe 35%, and then it just walks down all the way to the end. Every Tesla I've tested, over the last 3, 4, 5 years has pretty much been 1 hour, 0 to full. They all get there in different ways. And the other benefit is the charging networks. And we'll get into that in the next section because that's where Tesla might have a really big advantage here. We'll talk though, in terms of its charging curve, pretty much this is a great road tripping car. The ID.4 is a great road tripping car. The Mach-E, actually a pretty good road tripping car. Sometimes you maybe have to sit a little bit longer at chargers. Based off of my testing though, this one's really the worst one when it comes to DC charging. Can't wait to test the new software. So Polestar, if you're watching this, you have a car with new software, we're waiting to test it. Quick note on charging infrastructure. I mentioned the battery pack capacities, I've mentioned the peak charging rate, and a general overview of the curve, which is honestly the most important part of charging. But even more important than the curve and the charging rate is the availability of chargers and you're basically which networks are you locked into. Each car kind of has partnerships with their own brand, but for example, Mustang Mach-E gives you 250 kilowatt hours of free Electrify America charging. The car supports plug-in charge, which means you can roll up to any Electrify America charger. In theory, it works now pretty well actually. Then you plug in and then you're good to go. The problem with the Mach-E though is once you run out of your free charging and you want to use plug-in charge, you can't use the Electrify America Pass Plus membership, which means you're paying full 42, 43 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a lot more expensive than the 32 or 31 cents per kilowatt hour you buy with your $4 a month membership. And so, yes, the car has plug-in charge, but if you're price conscious at all, you would just go onto your app, swipe to activate, and then negate the plug-in charge feature. I'm sure this will get worked out over time, but it's been this way for a year now, and it hasn't been fixed, so I feel the need to mention that. Polestar 2 at this moment does not support plug-in charge, but it does come, I think as of this week actually, the announcement went, I want to say 2 years of free 30-minute DC fast charging on Electrify America. It might be unlimited. Either way, big deal. Awesome for road tripping that you can just not worry about the costs and just go at will. Now, I keep mentioning Electrify America, which is sort of the only holistic public charging network that has locations well thought out. So there's two different ways, and I'm just going to touch on this very briefly because it's important, but there's two different ways charging networks put in chargers. The first is you say, hi, I make DC fast chargers. Which businesses would like to purchase them? And then businesses say, I'd like to host charging, and then they put them around. This approach works for inner city use, but when you're trying to build a network out across the country, not everyone's talking to everyone. So you don't get a really nice web or infrastructure across the country. This is how ChargePoint operates mostly. Then you have companies like EVgo and Electrify America that say, we want to build a network out, which means we want to get people from major metropolitan city to major metropolitan city, and we're going to do this in a holistic manner, which means if you want to go from Miami to New York or LA to San Francisco, or if you want to go from New York to Los Angeles, we've done that drive a few times, that means that they've put the chargers in places where businesses may not necessarily want them. So you can go in the middle of Nebraska, you can go here in northern Colorado, and you'll find Electrify America and EVgo stations because they've built out that network, and it's all using CCS. All of these cars are CCS. That's the charging plug with the our new standard. That's pretty much the way we're all going. So all three of these cars, the ID.4, the Polestar 2, and the Mustang Mach-E use the CCS public networks. And on road trips, honestly, at this point, Electrify America is the only game in town. The ID.4 comes with 3 years of free charging on Electrify America, unlimited time, which means you just plug that thing in and walk away and you're good. There's one key thing to mention. If you're watching this video and you're new to electric cars, go to our Out of Spec Motoring channel where you'll see a ton of our road trips where we go through DC fast charging etiquette, and just tips and tricks in general. The thing is, you want to make sure your battery's warm and at low state of charge to get the fastest charge rate. You want to charge just enough to get to the next station with a buffer that you're comfortable with, because they slow down as they fill up, of course. So to maximize your time, then you just want to charge when the car's pulling peak rates. And also, if your car's finished charging, pull it off the charger. Don't leave them connected if your car's finished. They will bill you, by the way, idle fees just about on every network these days, and it's just not fair to other electric vehicle drivers to leave your car plugged in. And then we get to the oddball here, which honestly is the best charging situation. It's Tesla's supercharging network that right now only Teslas can use in the US. There are some pilot programs happening around the world where, CCS, I mentioned, these cars use in Europe, Teslas use them too, at least Model 3 and Model Y, and those stations are being opened up to other EVs. It's a really interesting world to watch, but at least this is a US focused video. Only Teslas can use superchargers at this moment, which means the car has the navigation with all the chargers in it. It routes you to where you want to go. You just put in, from here in Fort Collins, Colorado, I could say, I want to go to, I don't know, San Jose, and it says you're going to stop here, 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 and here. I'm going to warm the battery up on the way to the first one. Here's how long you'll be at each one. And oh, by the way, here's how many other people are plugged in. And if one fills up, we'll find you another one so you don't have to wait. It's an amazing vertically integrated charging system. It has plug-in charge standard, which means like the Mach-E, you walk up, plug in, communicates, hi, I'm this car, hi, I'm this charger, I know who to bill, you're good to go. At this moment, Teslas don't come with any free charging in the referral programs done. So you're paying by the kilowatt hour or by minute in certain states. But honestly, it's the cheapest network in the US. It's a really great experience. You can see plenty of my Tesla road trip videos. They work 99+% of the time. I never worry about getting to a Tesla supercharger and it being buggy or offline. I know I'll always be able to charge. It's just the easiest, best charging experience on road trips. Now, if you're at home most of the time, which is how most people live, I imagine, doesn't matter. You plug in at home, all of these cars are going to give you the same experience. It's just on road trips. If you take a lot of them and you're not really into a huge sense of adventure, at least today, Tesla's really going to be your best option to get around. These other cars have a great network of growing chargers to rely on, but I have to be totally transparent. My parents are driving now an ID.4, and sometimes I worry about them getting to a charger and them not being able to charge. So, it's just a Wild West world out there right now. I'd say in a year from when this video is shot, I hope it'll be a little bit more reliable. But if you're really concerned, the Model Y is really the only game in town right now. And for a lot of people, it's worth the upcharge just to use the Tesla supercharger network.
So Kyle has no eye for beauty. He does not care about what these cars look like. So he's asked me to step in and talk about the looks, the design language each manufacturer has used. And really quick, I want to point out something while we can see all of them together. They all are EVs and want to have a little bit of efficiency cranked out wherever they can. And so you might see every single car has wheels that are kind of partially painted with aluminum while hiding some more aero accents in black. And that's just the design choice. They want them to look sporty, but they still want to have aero-ish wheels. Each car has multiple options of wheels, but let's start with the Mustang Mach-E and talk about its design. So this is a very controversial car when it was unveiled because the Ford Mustang is a staple and it has been for decades. And so the fact that Ford has electrified it and also made it a small crossover made people upset. But I will objectively say it is a good looking car. You can see kind of the front fascia here has the very distinct Mustang style grille, especially with the newest generation Mustang. And then the trademark lights, which are kind of 3 lines down the front. And we'll see the same thing on the rear in a second here. And you actually have some kind of aero bits down here. It just looks pretty good. Now the newest generation Mustang, or the newest model year I should say, actually has blacked out grille for certain parts. And so it kind of depends what you think. I like that this one has not done the fake grille. I like when EVs don't do that and don't try to mimic the gassed version of the cars. With the specific first edition, you have red brake calipers, and this part is actually body color. Of course, you can get that on the GT as well. But the cool thing about the Mustang Mach-E is they tried to still make it look slender, just like the Mustang Coupe. So you can do that with the design trend of kind of blacking out the bottom sill, which adds a sporty flair, quote unquote, but it actually makes the car in itself look thinner, which, yeah, it kind of works until you see it next to an actual Mustang. And the trend continues up here. This whole black part actually sticks up a bit, and if you were to make this body colored, it'd look a little bit more like a wagon. But in this case, that plus that really tapers down the end and makes it look pretty coupe-like. So they tried to make people less angry, and I don't know, if it works, it depends on who you are and what you're looking for. The back, of course, the Mustang trend continues with the famous 3 striped lights. And they're actually white until the brakes come on, then they turn red. Of course, they can also turn yellow for the turn signals. And the Mustang badge, that's a nice touch. You don't actually see Ford logos on this car, which is kind of cool. So you also have the lower kind of diffuser thing. Not really, there's no exhaust down there, of course, which is weird to see on a Mustang, but it's just part of it. Let's move on to the Polestar 2, which I think personally, now again, design is objective or subjective, but personally I think the Polestar 2 looks the best. It has a very unique Scandinavian boxy design while still looking very sleek and kind of the coupe-like rear end instead of doing the hatchback like the Volvo XC40 that it shares a platform with. It has really cool kind of yellowy brake calipers, and that again is part of the performance pack you can get on this. And the yellow brake calipers match the valve stem covers, which match the yellow seat belts that we'll see in the interior in just a bit. And that's a really cool design. I love the black with the white accents. There's other colors you can get in all these cars, but this is a very clean spec, probably how I would order mine personally. You have lots of angular accents. Even the door handles have this like rectangular shape. And let's actually come to the side here. The mirrors are what they call frameless, which is kind of cool. It looks a little weird in some lights, and it actually doesn't block the sun in certain cases, but the wheels themselves, I'm a huge fan of. They have kind of the split 4-spoke design, which you don't see very often, but you can see a lot more happening with the black parts. You just don't see it right off the bat because the bright part captures your eye. Around the front, you have the classic kind of Volvo Polestar Thor's hammer with the daytime running LEDs. The headlights look really cool, and the grille, lots more boxes and shapes. And it's actually not fake, which is why it doesn't offend me. There's actually real slits for air to get through and help with cooling. Of course, you have the really unique Polestar logo. Not many people actually know what Polestars are, so it is a fun car to drive around, and people typically ask, what is that? Little more black accents around the side, and you have a bit more of the plastic cladding on this than you saw in the Mustang. It's because the wheel wells have the black plastic right there, all along the bottom, which is effective. It does protect the paint from rock chips because most rocks will hit in that lower area there. And then coming around to the back here, nice and squared off design. Again, the lights are really cool. The bar goes all the way across, much like a lot of modern EVs are trying to lean into the futuristic design language. And actually at night, when you unlock the Volvo, the lights will just kind of illuminate around in a circular formation. So very good looking car. Again, my favorite of the bunch. But let's move on to the Volkswagen ID.4. This one really does look VW. Ford had to mold into existing design language with the Mustang. This has to mold into existing Volkswagen design language. Now, I will say it is more curvy than many Volkswagens, and they're trying to lean into that efficiency with the electric platform, get as much range as possible. I like this accent here along the side where it has the trim. You can always see the ID.4 trim listed there. Not my favorite wheels, but they look pretty good with the car. I would have lowered a little bit, I'm kind of that weird person. These door handles actually don't open, like they don't physically pull, but there's a little button down here, and that's what opens the door. So slightly different, confusing at first, but you'll get used to it. Coming around back, very, very nice taillights, and these do have the same kind of light bar all the way across. Again, just like almost every other EV is trying to do if they really want to lean into that sporty design. You also have white Volkswagen logo and white ID.4 logo, which I think looks great on this dark blue color. Coming around to the front, you have the fascia, which I'm okay with. I do go back and forth. These vents are actually real. It does funnel actual air back there. They're not blocked off. I like that. The headlight signature is also very unique, also going all the way across in this specific trim. Not every trim has that. And this VW logo lights up too. I don't know how I feel about these actual projector housings. I think they look a little creepy like bug eyes, but it kind of works for the car. It's its own quirky characteristics. And now we have the Model Y, the Tesla, which unlike all the other cars, had no existing design language to work with when Tesla came to market, and they haven't been around that long. So Tesla's had EV from the ground up since the beginning. Because of that, it looks a little different. If you've seen the Model 3 since 2016, 2017 when it was unveiled, this is really similar, just a little taller. Some people hate it, some people love it. I'm on the fence. I think it looks objectively good. I do not like these aero wheels, but that is, again, something to eke a little bit of range into it. Door handles, also kind of controversial. They're the type where you push in and pull, which can be problematic in frozen weather, ice and snow, stuff like that. Of course, with the Model Y and newer Model 3s, all the trim was blacked out in lieu of the original like chrome trim, which is a very good design choice. The front, a lot of people call it kind of a frog fascia. It's got that weird little lip right there. I actually like it, but not everyone does. I do think the LED daytime running lights are a little bit understated. That's the true characteristic of a car. It's like the face of the car, especially at night. And the Model 3 and Model Y are, you can tell it's them, but it's so simple. I wish it was a bit more unique, just like the Tesla Model S. That's a very unique front fascia. Around back of the Model Y is actually, I think, one of the best parts. It does have a very unique rear LED design, and it's just very simple. This car doesn't have crazy lines and creases like the Mustang Mach-E, and it's not like a really sharp Scandinavian design like the Polestar. This one just exists to have a good drag coefficient, pretty good interior storage space, and they just kept it fairly simple, which in theory should help manufacturing. So for the Model Y, the charging port is actually the most inconspicuous, hidden back here in this little flap right there. Very easy to hide, and Tesla puts it on the back so you can back into the parking spot and charge your Tesla. Car meet everywhere, am I right? For the ID.4, the charging port is actually on the back on the right side, very similar to their gas ports. And there you have it, standard J1772, and then you take that off with a CCS. I actually like it back here as well. It's easy to just reverse into an Electrify America spot and charge your ID.4. The charging cap for the Volvo is right back here, and you have the J1772 along with the CCS plug. And it's a very easy way to just back into the charger and charge. Piece of cake. The worst charging experience of all these cars, aside from the charging curve, is actually the charging spot location, which is right here on the front. And because it's kind of a longer hood, all things considered, that actually means you have to pull up straight into an Electrify America station. Hopefully it's at an angle that is like helpful to you to get to the cable in here, but sometimes they're angled in such a way where it's really hard and the cables are really stiff and strong, and it's just sometimes annoying to get the angle right to plug it in and not damage this, not feel like you're stretching the cable too much. It's not my favorite. I wish it was on the back like all the other cars are. So in terms of my personal choice of my favorite designs, I will rank them best to worst. And first of all, Polestar 2, that's my favorite design. It's not the most aggressive and sleek, but I love how it looks. Second though, is the Mustang Mach-E. Controversial as it is, I was one of the people on the fence about it, but after seeing them and driving them, I really do love the design, and I like how bold Ford was with that. Third is the Model Y. It's clean, it's simple, it's to the point, and it doesn't really offend me at all. And fourth, the ID.4, which is not to say it's bad. These are still 4 cars I would double look at on the road and think that looks pretty good. But as far as my personal taste, the ID.4 is not the one I would personally like to be driven around in. Then again, if you lower it 3 inches, throw on some wheels.
Jordan, we're sitting here editing your video about where you just said your favorite design was the Polestar 2. I agree, great looking car, very Swedish. And then you said the Mach-E, and then you said the Model Y, which looks like a bloated frog, and then the ID.4. What, the ID.4 is such a good looking car.
We disagree on everything.
You're just wrong. And I told him I was going to pull this out of the video, but he's going to make me leave it in there. How can you say the Mach-E looks better than the ID.4?
It's more interesting to look at.
The ID.4 just looks good. There's nothing to complain about.
That's right.
That's the best part. You join us in the ID.4. We're going to go sport mode. We're then going to go into the vehicle menu. Then we're going to go under the braking category. Under braking, we're going to go brakes, ESC, sport, which you can't do in the rear-wheel drives.
Nice.
Rear-wheel drive's just on all the time. And we're actually in the ID.4 first for a performance driving evaluation, not because any of these cars are particularly sporty, but just because it's kind of fun to drive cars fast. This is my good friend Drew, and I think we start with the launch. What do you say, Drew?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, launch it. Let's see how it does. Soft off the line, feeding in power. There at about 40 we get everything.
Full.
And there's, you know, where we need to be. Not crazy fast here.
No, not that hits you in the stomach sort of acceleration, but
Right.
It gets up and goes.
It gets up and goes just fine. And the reason we're starting with the ID.4 is it's probably because it's the least sporty of the bunch. This is like a cruiser. I have my massaging seat on right now.
Oh,
It's
so
nice.
comfortable.
It is the best like daily driver one, I think, because it's just so soft and quiet and well built. And so, you know, we're kind of see how this thing handles some of the corners, test some of the braking characteristics as well. The all-wheel drive should have about a 1/2 inch larger front rotor than the rear-wheel drive. However, drums still in the back.
Right, drums in the back still.
And we're just sitting at wide open throttle pretty much everywhere. Now, I've driven MEB cars on the Nürburgring with ID.3. I've also spent a lot of time in rear-wheel drive ID.4, and this isn't our full performance driving evaluation, so we'll have another video on this channel with all 4 cars going through how they drive in the city, on the highway, and shredding up a back road. I believe I have that for all the other cars. The one that I need to film is this ID.4 all-wheel drive, but we'll have a full evaluation. So just as a general overview in terms of performance, this has 100 more horsepower than the rear-wheel drive. You just drove the rear-wheel drive, so do you feel that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it feels like 100 more horsepower.
Yeah, I would agree, but still not mind-blowing.
No, because yeah, you're still looking at a 0 to 60 of what?
5.4 versus 7 in the other one, I think, in the rear-wheel drive.
Right. Yeah, the rear-wheel drive is very leisurely.
Yeah, but this, I think, gets out of its own way.
Yep.
More than enough for daily driving.
Plenty.
Anyone buying this car has plenty of juice. The way the car makes the power, though, is really interesting. And I think it has the best motor combination in the way that they do their torque splits and things. So permanent magnet rear motor, 150 kilowatts. That does 90% of the driving, and it's on all the time. So if we're just driving like we are now at very light throttle, it's just rear-wheel drive.
Rear. Yep.
And then as we roll into it, you'll hear the front motor kick on. So let me know if you can hear that.
Yep.
Yeah, and it goes zzz,
Yep,
then you get
just
that
get it dialing
high-pitched
up.
whine. And that's the best thing for efficiency, because this car only does 10 miles less in the EPA cycle than the rear-wheel drive car.
Wow.
And it's purely because it's no different. It just has to haul around the front motor.
Right.
And then when you stand on it, that's when it uses both. So that is a great way,
That's nice.
I think, to do it. Now, there is a downside to having this sort of powertrain management, and that is, you know, for off-roading or snow, because then it has to spin the back. But Volkswagen's thought about that. So if you go here to modes, there's a traction mode that keeps both motors on all the time.
Got it.
Which is pretty nice. We're going to test some of the cornering stuff here, so we're just going to wait for cars, you know, to kind of get ahead of us and test it. But 0.6 inches higher ride height than ID.4 rear-wheel drive. There is a GTX version of this car that doesn't come to the US that's lowered and has dynamic damper. This is just a static damper and a little bit higher. So we'll see how it drives with ESC in sport mode. I think, first off, the chassis itself, you know, this car isn't built for full-on shredding, but braking performance is very linear. Maybe a little bit of a soft pedal, but I can hear it just pulsing ABS there. And look at that, power on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, coming through that corner there, you can feel that it is a naturally very well-balanced chassis.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, look, it's soft and floaty, but like the way it gets through a corner is exactly what you want out of a car. It kind of uses that rear axle so much.
Yep.
That it's super pleasant to drive fast.
Those are good feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, it just feels built so well. So the braking, I think, you know, we'll get into it when we do our deep dive on this car. Brake pedal's pretty soft, and that's just the nature of this type of braking system. But it's fine when it builds up pressure, then it's like right there. So for threshold braking, I can feel it just tapping ABS, which is great. So I know right when we're at the limit, when cornering brake control's working. Overall, I think it's just a great daily driver, and it does all the things well on a back road. I thought the rear-wheel drive was a little bit too slow to have fun with on a back road, but here at least you can get to the next corner in a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So,
taking into consideration the practicality of this vehicle, which is the reason why most people are going to buy it anyway, pretty amazing what it can do through the corners, actually.
It's just very German and very competent.
Yep.
On to the next one. Mustang Mach-E time. I wanted to go from least performance-y to most performance-y, and I think you and I both agree the Model Y, just from past experience, probably a hair above this.
I think so, yeah.
So let's go traction control off, unbridled mode on, and we'll start with a launch. What do you say, Drew?
Yep.
Okay, and 3, 2, 1. More than the ID.4.
Yeah, a little bit better punch.
Rips at 40, and there's 60. Still keeps pulling too. Strong, smooth performance, have to say.
Significantly stronger as the speed
warped brake rotor on this one. There's a big difference here with the traction control system we should mention before we get into it. On the new production Mach-E's, on all of them, you get a physical traction control switch down on the instrument cluster. On this one, you could just turn traction control up and not stability control. So, you talk about the tire size real quick.
These cars have very, very skinny wheels and tires.
That's why you're hearing.
Yeah, and we're not going really, I mean, any faster than we were going in the Volkswagen, but the tires are just howling. Yeah, so efficiency comes from that, but a lot less grip.
And the thing to mention is this isn't the highest performance Mustang. Oh, look at how nice this guy is. If only I could remember where they put the hazards. Down here. Thank you. Wide open throttle. Here we go. Good power, really is. So when we get into performance driving on Mach-E, you and I actually shot the performance drive review of this exact car, not this exact car, this exact model about a year ago.
Yeah, something like that.
And we ran into crazy overheating situations.
Yep, thermal throttled pretty quickly.
And I don't think that problem's been solved at all. And on the Mach-E GT, there's something called unbridled extend, which limits your max power output to give you more time driving hard, but then also the car's way slower, which just doesn't seem like the right move to me. This car really is very oversteery.
It's very loose, yeah.
Very loose. And that's fun for us. Like, we could have fun, get it into a corner like this, right? Power out, and we can just get little angles, which is great. And certainly
absolutely
fun. But is it fast? No. And so the GT is less slidey and a little bit quicker. But I just love nailing it mid-corner, being delayed on the correction and try and get as much angle before ESP shuts it down.
Right.
It's really hilarious.
Yeah, no, it makes you smile.
Yeah, and it's got good power. So the brake pedal itself, it's a brake-by-wire system. It's tuned very oddly, I would say. And so it's a little bit bitey on the grip, but we're already thermal throttling.
Yeah, yeah.
I can already feel the car going slow.
Yeah.
And so the Volkswagen, while it may not be as fast, I think is way more grown-up handling dynamics overall. And I would say this is just really gives the impression of speed to your average driver in the way that the rear end's a little bit rowdy and loose, but you're not actually going that fast.
Yep.
It's not really, I would say, performance driving is the worst part about this car.
Right. Yeah. The color kind of goes along with the driving dynamics, where it's just very flashy, but
it's just patience into this. Just listen to the tires. And you're just constantly in the limit of what the tires can do. We're only going 45 miles an hour.
We're not even speeding. Yeah.
So that's an OE tire selection, which deserves to be reviewed with the car. It's a Mustang name without really fast driving dynamics. Now, most people, they get in this car that aren't crazy drivers. I mean, you're a way faster driver than I am. And they get in the car and they go, whoa, I heard tire squeal. Whoa, the back's moving around. I'm right on the limit. This is fast and fun. And
it must be fast because, oh my gosh, like the tires are squealing through that corner.
Right. And that's what this car, that's why there's so many articles that like it handles so well, but it overheats itself when you drive the piss off of it. The brakes are not terrible, but the brake pedal modulation's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And overall, I just really hate driving this car fast. I mean that totally genuinely. It's the exact opposite situation with the GT.
Okay.
So I recently drove the Mach-E GT Performance Edition. That solved every problem I have with this car except thermal throttling. So I think, you know, this is the extended range all-wheel drive. It's not the performance one. The performance one is good. Just don't go into this one thinking it's the performance one. Look at the guy in the bike ripping. We're right with them too. Wow, the brakes are really warped on this thing. Brake test, by the way.
Yeah, you can.
Did we even slow down?
Yeah, the braking distance has to be very long too, which, I mean, that's where you really get into it kind of being a dangerous decision to balance efficiency with tire grip, because yeah, you're gonna go into that person in front of you.
Yeah, you really need to brake early. So this car failed the Moose test. There was a big story. Oh, this guy almost just failed that corner. He was all the way on the other side of the road. Yeah. That's what I call overriding your abilities. Why we always leave space from people in front. Never want to push someone past what they can do.
Especially in this thing.
Yeah. So this car failed the moose test, and what that meant was the back end got way too loose when they swung the car around, and it drives like that in the real world. Really fun to give the impression of a performance drive. I personally don't believe the moose test or the Maniroba de Esquiva, is that I think they say it, because it's a Spanish outlet. Maniroba de Esquiva. I love the videos. But I don't think that's an accurate way to judge a car's handling dynamics, so I don't actually think it's a good way to judge handling characteristics.
Sure.
What they do is they go off throttle, then crank the wheel around. Also feel it kick regen off when we did that.
Yep. Grab brakes.
But when have you ever done an emergency maneuver as a general driver and not been standing on the brake pedal?
Yeah, then that's even if you're driving in a performance setting where you are trying to extract every bit of performance out of the car, you would be hard
You would
on the
be
brakes.
brake or throttle. You're never just sitting there, really.
Right.
I mean, maybe mid-corner. But, at the end of the day, not a great test. Mustang Mach-E's not a great performance car. However, if you get the GT, 2 thumbs up on that one. They just need to fix the cooling. The overheating of the motors, car going into turtle mode, you drive it fast, totally unacceptable for a car with a Mustang badge. And also in this one that you can't turn ESP off, again, totally unacceptable, I think. Thoughts? Final thoughts?
Thoughts? Yeah. Just, ditto. Ditto, basically. Watch out for the bikes.
Why would they stop in the middle of the road?
Jeez. Yeah, fix the thermals. I haven't experienced the GT, so maybe that solves all of my other...
Well, the mag ride
gripes.
settles down the rear with the fatter tires. It's the car's just so much more composed.
Okay. Maybe that's the one then.
That's the one. But then you're in, a lot more money.
Right.
That's like 10 grand more than this.
Right.
Or
So
maybe more.
in this category, sorry, not the Mach-E.
Not the Mach-E in performance. We are in the Tesla Model Y long range all-wheel drive. It's not the brand newish version, but there should be no difference to driving, I think. Would you agree?
Performance-wise, has not changed.
Okay, so we're going to go standard acceleration, standard steering, regen on full, slip start on, which should let us maybe slide a little bit. This does not have track mode. Elon promised track mode for Model Y performance, but hasn't happened. So now, let's launch it. Strong off the line, still building, but here at 35.
Building it up, yeah.
Oh, even at 50, it just keeps cranking it.
Yeah, I feel like it's still building.
Man, yeah, at high speed, this thing pulls harder than the others.
Yep, quickest so far.
So far, yep, I would agree. And, well, regen and brake really quick. All the other cars have a brake-by-wire system. This is a physical brake connected to the pads, and the only regen I'm getting is controlled by throttle and not with brake pedal blending, so it feels very natural when I get on the brakes. Can you explain the wheel and tire situation?
So, I mean, relative to the Mach-E, which we just drove, which has a 7-inch wide wheel with 225 width tires, which are very skinny. I mean, really bicycle tires for the weight of that car. This has a 9.5 with 255s. So a lot more rubber on the road, a lot more grip. Suspension just way better. I mean, this thing is a go-kart in comparison.
It really feels like a go-kart after getting out of the Mach-E.
Great, yeah.
And it's so fast. Like, do you really need the performance? Oh, look at that Porsche. That is gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Yep, amazing. Perfect day for a drive, too. The steering's really quick in this car. Have you noticed that?
It is quick. I would like it a little bit slower, actually.
Me
It's
too.
just a little too quick.
And I think on the highway especially is where it makes a difference. But here on a back road, I have to like recalibrate myself. Look at that, even power on rotation.
That was nice.
And it just grabbed ESP right at the end.
Yep.
Which was nice.
Let you do just the right amount.
Just enough little 4-wheel slide. That felt great. Steering's just a little bit quick.
Yep.
Little quick. Like,
Gotta really slow down your movements.
But like, holy smokes, is this the far more capable than ID.4 and Mach-E. And then just even the acceleration out of corners.
Yeah.
The way it gets the power down.
Yeah, just traction and no messing around, just go.
I can't believe I've never felt a Model Y feel so sporty after getting out of those cars.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
back-to-back comparison.
And the braking is the real special part of this car too. So like if I just like get into the brake pedal, it's ABS right there in the pedal, feels great, and it actually gives you a lot of wheel lock too. Like it's very aggressive under braking.
Yep.
Wow, this feels good, and it sounds good too. You hear the motors working, and like it's definitely the most pleasant up to this point. I wonder if the Polestar will be more fun. I remember loving the Polestar on this exact road.
Yeah, that has a chance, I think.
I think so too, but it's just, so this car's very good at performance, but then on the highway, I can already tell it's way noisier than the other cars.
Sure.
and it's a little bit rough as well. So I wonder if it's the best cruiser out of the bunch. Probably, maybe, we'll see.
I'm leaning Volkswagen so far for best cruiser.
And you're like Mr. Tesla man. You love your Tesla.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And tech-wise, I don't think there's a competition here today. The Tesla's got it hands down.
It's just such great vertically integrated everything.
Yeah.
We're just going to give that guy a little bit of room to go. Yeah, no one's really around us.
But the Germanness of the ID.4 is hard to deny. It's just very solid.
It's so pleasant to drive around slowly.
Really nice, yeah.
All right, so let's see how the Model Y does when we go down the hill, and why it just launches so nicely. And the drivetrain feels definitely the best put together.
Oh yeah.
And even a bit of rotation out of corners. So like coming in under braking, you can feel it just grabbing individual brakes. It feels awesome. Leaned over and big power. Feels great under braking. It really does. Look at that.
Oh man, that's great. Slip start gives you plenty.
Slip start really does give plenty. That's just full brakes. Wow. Thank you very much. Little dusty.
And that's you know, a pretty non-sporty all-season tires is our limit there. Yeah.
But the speeds are so much higher.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like another 20 to 30 miles an hour than Mach-E.
Mach-E's speed limit sliding.
And that's the craziest thing to me is how quick the Teslas are, because Model S was such a disappointment on this road, Plaid, and this is way more fun than the Plaid on this road, just because the Plaid you couldn't get any movement, and it would just go like with any lock on the wheel, it wouldn't give you power. Yeah. And this is like, oh, you get all the power you want all the time. It's just Model 3 and Y chassis.
3Y chassis is just so good.
I mean, and you know, Drew drives a Model 3 and I do as well, so look, you'll never have someone who's totally unbiased. I think I'm pretty, you know, I don't care who wins in this competition, but like, you win so many races in your Model 3.
Sure, right.
And not relative to this test, but just the chassis that this car is built on is far more capable than most any production car.
Yep. Well, and yeah, I mean, I could have chose to do anything, and I chose to follow the Tesla path because I do believe it's better, because it is,
and it translates here to the Y.
Yeah, so
that's impressively quick, actually. Like, it's so great to drive them back to back.
Yeah.
Because like, and I'm glad we did it in this order, because like, holy smokes, this feels great.
Ramping it up. Yeah. And this is the base. This is your long range, entry level
aero wheels and tires.
Right.
What a great little car. So on to the Polestar 2 next, which I think will be the most fun. We'll see. We'll see. We are now in the Polestar 2 in terms of driving settings. We have steering in standard. Maybe I'll go firm. I don't remember what I like. ESC in sport mode, one pedal drive on and creep off. Should we launch it?
Let's do it.
Smooth power. Ramps up at about 30. Wow, feels good from a launch.
Feels very good. Yeah, probably a little harder of a hit right off the bat than some of the others.
Think so? Yeah. I mean, to me, it feels very similar to Model Y, but very different ways of making power. Model Y, you hear the motors, kind of leans back a little bit. This just...
Yep.
And partially... So can you explain the suspension on this car compared to like the standard Polestar 2?
So the dampers are, first of all, just stiffer. You know, stiffer springs, stiffer dampers, and adjustable, which is pretty interesting. With physical knobs, so you can turn it up for stiffness and response. And not sure where we're at now. If you said it was in the middle, right, that sounds about right. Yeah, feels about right.
Feels a little roly-poly mid-corner.
Yeah, but
still, not really. Like,
still better than anything else so far. That's very good.
It's a whole nother level. Now, what I really wanted for this test was XC40 Recharge, because that's more SUV than this car, although they're on the same chassis.
Yep.
And that car wouldn't handle as well as this one.
Right. Yeah, this has a center of gravity advantage.
Yes, it does. But like, holy smokes, does this thing have grip, first of all? Look at that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's just standing on it.
Yeah. Sportier tires, that's a big deal.
Wow. And this guy's going like 2.5 miles an hour right here. But yes, so we'll rip on the way back down. But overall, you know, huge brakes from Brembo, really strong braking performance, but also brake-by-wire. But the brake-by-wire is tuned so well that like, it's such a stiff pedal. You know when you drive like a GT3 or a Porsche with ceramic brakes and it's like hitting a wall?
Yeah.
and then you can just lean into it.
Right.
This gives you that impression of like a crazy performance braking system.
So they could choose what feel that they were going for, and they chose something that is really nice.
I would say this is a firmer brake pedal than C40 Recharge, which I imagine is the same as XC40 Recharge. But like the braking response is like, and the seatbelts.
Yeah, nice. Appreciate that. A little late.
Yeah. Yeah. But overall, this is by far the most hardcore, but the least, I would say, slidey. So I think to your average consumer, this is going to feel the slowest on a back road, if that makes sense.
Because it's so capable and just stuck.
Yeah, because it's like not oversteery at all, right? Like power out's very neutral.
Oh, yeah.
It does front and rear grip. And then it just shreds up these roads. Like look at the way this thing just goes into a corner and then
turns
powers
in
out.
nice.
We're going to skip our little turnaround because it's that fun.
Yeah, let's go further.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice chassis. Definitely just very slightly front biased as far as
it's a little understeering.
Balance, right.
What I think they need, because this car has two 150 kilowatt motors that are identical, they need to juice the rear.
Yep.
Because when we're coming out of these corners, it's just plowing a little bit on the front. And I wish, like, we'll hit it hard through this little section coming up as long as there's no traffic, which there is. Like coming out of this tight corner, this is where I really want that rear to step the back out and like it just, no matter what I do.
That's exactly where we would have backed the Mach-E.
Yeah, Mach-E would have. So insanely capable car, but doesn't give the impression of speed.
Right.
It's the exact opposite of Mach-E. I wonder, so I've driven the non-performance pack Polestar 2, and that car felt good, but maybe, you know, like definitely softer and lets you kind of roll the car around a little bit more. And love the shifter, by the way. Love all of this.
Yeah.
Just feels so nice.
Yeah.
And the interior's lovely. And like the power is good. Also in terms of thermal longevity, I've never driven an EV that can rip as hard as this car can for such a period of time.
Nice.
I think Model 3 performance is good. But you can overheat it, obviously.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And you can overheat this car too, but I would say just the capability of it doing this entire road kind of flat out. So like here, it's just understeer.
Yeah.
But that's me driving it in a way to get understeer.
Sure.
I can go a little bit faster in, use the weight to get the car around.
Yep. Straighter out.
Yep.
I think a track test is in order with
track
this.
test. Like it just is hooks and goes. Crazy car, really is. For like an electric, you call this a sedan. I think it's still like a little compact utility, but
it's a little bit in between. Yeah.
It's so capable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the braking performance when you really get on it feels awesome.
Yeah. This thing feels understressed in this situation.
Really, it's like so capable. It just can do this all day long, and I can't believe that like the Swedish went so wild with this car.
Yeah, this is pretty hardcore. Pretty hardcore, but then...
Are they on a rogue trip, do you think?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it just needs that little bit less understeer, and it's like kind of perfect.
Yeah, so like I said, it's 450 horsepower, 300 kilowatts. If they just give it 500 horsepower and the extra from the back, so you can...
Rear. Yeah.
Yeah, because the only thing you can't do is throttle steer the car. So like even in the ID.4 and especially the Model Y, and the Mach-E is just so loose on the back, it doesn't make a difference, but you can control rear axle with throttle.
Yep.
And in this car, you cannot do that at all.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, that's the only thing I don't like about it from a fun perspective.
Yep.
And I think from what I've heard, secretly, allegedly, it's possible Polestar will have some performance software upgrade packs that are going to do exactly what we want.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So
if it's an update, a matter of an update, that's great.
I know they're really focused on performance because they gave Misha one at the Nürburgring as like his car to drive for a while, and he's helping with development work. And
perfect.
Misha knows how to set up a car.
Absolutely.
So
great.
I feel pretty good about that. Pretty spicy from the Swedes though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really enjoy this thing on a back road. I would say the Y is probably the great blend between performance and fun.
Sure.
And this is just fast.
Yep. Yeah, this is the quickest for sure, especially around corners.
Yeah, I mean, just like last corner into a straightaway, just has so much mechanical grip.
Yeah.
And look, it doesn't stop pulling. Like that's allegedly big numbers. And I'm working so little to make the car do that.
Yep.
Right, like around these corners, it's just turn, and it's set up so nicely that it just goes around.
Yeah, it does feel very nicely balanced.
Absolutely. And the transitions are great. I really like this car a lot. If you live on a mountain road, this is the car to buy.
Yeah, I think so.
Totally. Well, there we have it. I think we went up in levels of performance capability, and I think we drove the cars in the correct order. Now we'll get into even more stuff in this comparison. What do you think about the comparison, by the way? I'm enjoying it.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, back to back, seeing all the differences and feeling and touching all the things you can. It's great to compare them.
Totally agree.
Yep.
What's your favorite overall?
Favorite overall is, you'll accuse me of being biased, but it is the Model Y, just because it just does everything so well.
Interesting.
And then, you've got so much more space than this vehicle.
At this point, because we're filming the video kind of sequentially, so everyone's joining us at the same time.
Sure.
I don't know which one I would choose yet.
Yeah, I think me personally, because I'm the more hardcore racer type.
And you're a Swedish heritage.
And I'm Swedish. I think Polestar is it. Obviously, I have a Model 3 Performance, which that's really tough. This between that,
but this will
not the
beat you up for
comparison
daily
today.
driving.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so stiff that it's already rattled some stuff back
Yeah,
there.
here's some squeaks. Yeah, for sure. But good on them for doing this, because it's
when you see one on
awesome.
the road with the performance pack, you're like, they know what's up.
Yep, totally.
So, the interior of the Polestar 2. First of all, how's the door? That's a nice sound. It also has one of my favorite door grabs ever. It's just like you slide your hand in and pull it closed. Absolutely love that. Interior quality for the Polestar. We're going to talk quality and design first. Design, just like the outside, stunning. This is a beautiful place to be. You have a nice mix of materials, and nothing feels overtly cheap. I will say many Polestars and Volvos use the piano black plastic a bit more than I like, especially here in the center console and on the steering wheel. They are the touch points, which means at the end of every day, I probably want to finish by wiping down my car, but I'm a bit OCD. I will acknowledge that. But the materials, this is fantastic. The door handle is a nice metal pole. You have metal accents along the vents, and the vents actually look really good on the sides here. The center vents, interestingly, are kind of up above the screen, which you don't hardly ever see something like that. And then above that is the Harman Kardon speaker system. I love this frameless rear view mirror design, fantastic. However, from inside here I can see the frameless exterior mirrors, and I'm not actually as much of a fan of those. They look a little awkward to me, almost like it's just missing the frame, which I know is the point of a frameless mirror, but not my favorite execution. The steering wheel itself, great leather feel, not too soft, but not too hard. It's just like, it's just nice. The center here, that's the cheaper kind of plastic. And then you have all along here, it almost looks like it could be cheap. It feels a little cheap, but it doesn't look bad. Like it's much better than some offerings you see in low model or low price GM products. Up here you have a nice mesh right there. And then the real wood accents. It's another staple for Volvo and Polestar. The real wood in their interiors is beautiful. So this is all just very dark colored, and you have the dark seats, of course, with the fun yellow seat belts, extremely bright track package seat belts, and since 1959, because as many of you may know, Volvo invented seat belts. But I am a huge fan of just the execution of this interior. It's very, very comfortable. The wheel feels good. And this screen, I typically prefer landscape orientation screens, but this one's not bad. And what's interesting is this actually runs essentially the bones of like Android Auto. It's Android based. And it's very intuitive, although it took me a bit to realize this was the like home button down here. But very simple to see and how everything works. I actually like the graphics. They're very squared, just like the design of the car. Inside settings, they're always easy to get to. There's not like, you don't have to go deep into the menus to find what you're looking for. And everything's laid out really well, kind of like how you would want it to be laid out on, let's say, an app for an iPad, which is really what this looks like. I will say, this is nitpicking, but the borders of the screen are pretty thick bezels like an iPad 1 from 2010. That's not my favorite. I wish they were thinner. If they were, that would be just the cream at the top. The driver's display, entirely digital, very, very nice to look at. Yeah, I would just be so happy driving this car. For the center console, like I said, some piano black right here, but it almost looks like it's floating above the wood. I do like that. The shifter is always a nice experience. You got like this hole in the middle, just kind of interesting. Not like the orifers that you can see in other Volvo products, which is more of a crystal design. I've always loved the gauges. There's just, or the knobs, and there's just one knob right here in the front of the shifter, which is a bit strange because it's like you have to rest your hand on the shifter to use it, which feels kind of strange. You almost think you might just shift accidentally. Right above that is like a sloping waterfall containing a Qi charger for your phone, which is actually a great implementation. I mean, that's a great place for your phone to sit. It won't slide around too much. There's ridges to prevent it from sliding either direction. That's where the USB ports are also hidden. Lots of good storage space up here. I like that. Down here you have the single center cup holder. Now, with an asterisk, there's another hidden center cup holder by opening this, and then you can have your second cup holder, and then that just has to open into your rear passenger space. So kind of a strange implementation there, but I guess it works in a pinch. As far as like elbow placement, it's not very plush, but it doesn't really offend me. But yeah, the front is totally comfortable. Let me check out the rear. Okay, getting in the back of the Polestar. Oh yeah, I hit my hat right there. So a little bit more crammed, and as you can see by the slope back design of this car, that does impede on rear headroom. Now I am 6 feet tall exactly, and my hat at least is just it's right at the ceiling, so not much room, which is interesting because typically, like Tesla for example, the glass that extends all the way back actually gives you more room. You don't have to worry about the ceiling and the insulation and everything. Versus this, the glass ends right before where your rear passenger head would be, that's kind of a strange implementation to me. But headroom aside, legroom, totally fine. Here I am sitting behind myself. I've got ample legroom in front, same type of grab handle. I mean, it's almost an identical door to the front seats. Again, nice nice clicky buttons right there for the metal on the rear vents. And then some more charging, and you even have heated seats in the rear, which is great. And the charging port in the rear is actually a 2 USB-C ports, so just like the front, this is all USB-C. Same fun seat belts back here if you have this specific package. And the back overall is fine. Now, I will say the seats are actually a little on the firm side if you ask me. So I don't know if I'd want to be a back passenger for a really long trip, but around town, totally great. So while I'm back here, I do want to point out the reflection in the glass up there is reflecting something that's above this, which is pretty cool. Just see the Polestar logo floating in the air in front of you. So around the rear of the Volvo, you do have this nice power hatch, and inside the trunk, which is a decent size for kind of a sloped back small crossover, it's almost a sedan, but 14 cubic feet, give or take, with the seats up. And then when you fold the seats back, it's actually a full like 36 cubic feet. So plenty of ample storage space. You do have a ski pass-through right in there. I think it's plenty for most people. We'll take a look at the front now because that's a bit of a weak point. Here in the front, we have a measly almost 2 cubic feet. It is very small. I mean, I don't know what you'd really put up here, but you do have the jack and everything up here, which is nice. But yeah, very, very small space. Tools underneath. It's almost a place where you'd put those like few little knickknacks you just want to keep in your car at all times, like the cleaning supplies for wiping down your piano black gloss in the front. But yeah, very small front, not really something you use on the daily. All right, inside the ID.4. Ooh, not quite as much of a tight door closing sound, but a fantastic interior. Like Kyle said, this is such a bargain for what you get for the price. Very minimalist too. That's another thing that really jumps out at you, is just how few things there are, especially in the center console. Now with the climate control, so it just came on, like the car really just comes on when you get in the car as long as you have the key on you. So what's nice is climate control, you can do low, moderate, high on the auto setting, which is fantastic. So yeah, ID.4. Very interesting. And this is a car that has proven to me the efficiency and capability of over-the-air updates. I was not actually a fan of the infotainment when it first came out, and they've already solved some things and made it much more responsive to use. And it is a capacitive touchscreen, so it's a fantastic interface. Very, very like bright. I've never had trouble seeing it in daylight. And even with the way they've kind of split the screen here on this version, where you have map and infotainment over there, that's very similar to how I would set up Apple CarPlay myself. So this is one of the few cars I would be okay with that has CarPlay capability that I wouldn't even use. You do have an interesting way of interacting with different things here, because not everything is an actual button. These right here are actually sliders. So you can just like push your finger on it and then swipe between temperatures. And it's really not too hard to use once you understand how to actually use it. Down below that are a few more buttons, and then you have this like very obvious home button right there. So lots of easy things to get to. Sound system, which is actually pretty good for the car. It doesn't have anything really premium in it, but it actually sounds quite good. But yeah, easy to use, and it's intuitive. And it's kind of like almost dumbing it down and so, to a point where you don't have to think about too much what you want to do. It does have heated steering wheel, heated seats, no ventilated seats in this car, but the smart climate is something kind of fun. If you don't know what to do the settings for, you just tell it, oh, my windshield's foggy, clear view. My feet are cold, warm heat, warm hands, cool feet, fresh air. There's all sorts of fun things in there, which is kind of nice. And then in front of me is this actual driver display, which will move actually with the steering wheel, which is kind of nice. It is not a power moving steering wheel, which is disappointing, but you got to compromise somewhere, right? So it's a very intuitive display. It doesn't have a whole lot of things it'll show you, but you can adjust a couple things. And again, this is not necessarily always clicking. I can just swipe and choose to see my adaptive cruise control settings there, or more of just the speedometer. So pretty simple. It does have good adaptive cruise control. Of course, we'll get into that later with the driving. But yeah, pretty easy to use this car. There's not a whole lot about it. Now, one annoying thing to me is in the door over here, there is black plastic, piano black, of course, and there's only 2 window buttons. Yeah, this is a 4-door car with 4 windows. And the trick is the rear button then toggles the rear window, which is just... And then you have to press and hold it again to revert back to the front. So not my favorite. I just wish they had done 4 buttons, but you know, they pick and choose their battles. You have good cup holders down here, and this door just rolls open to expose your USB-C ports and some more storage. So decent storage, simple minimalist interior. I've also been on the fence about this actual gear selector here. It's not quite as intuitive as some others, although you have to like revert your brain to a new way of thinking about it. Twisting it with the top forward is drive. And then you do that again to go to the B mode, which is almost like engine braking. It's a lot more regenerative braking. Not quite one pedal driving, but close to it. And then twisting it back, with the top going back, is what brings you to the reverse. There is no 360 camera in the ID.4. That is one other way they can separate it from the e-tron. But it does have a pretty good rear view camera and sensors all around the car, so can't complain too much. It really is very comfortable. These seats are fantastic. The armrests are fine, not like super plush, but I mean, it is very easy for me to just cruise around town or even road trip in this car. I've done the EPA test that we put on inside EVs, and I had no problem sitting in the car for hours waiting for the battery to die on the highway. I was absolutely comfortable. And so, yeah, I'm totally happy with these seats. They even have a cool ID engraving, ID period, which is kind of cool. But let's look at the back and see how that is. So getting in the back, the ID.4, oh, this is spacious. I mean, this is probably one of the bigger of the crossovers we have with us today. I do have a bit more headroom than, let's say, the Polestar. But again, it's the weird thing where the glass ends right before where my head would be. But these seats feel fantastic. I would be really comfortable on a road trip back here even. Let's see, pull down this here. Yeah, that's a good armrest. Not much happening back here. A couple more USB-C ports, a little ID button at the bottom. Oh, it's not a button. You can push it in and break it. Don't ask me how I know. But it's, yeah, fantastic. And I should mention, I love this color choice, this like light kind of slate color in contrast with the black and dark grays. It's a really good color design for the car itself. So let's take a look at storage capacity and see what you're working with. So in the back of the ID.4, again, possibly the biggest today, a whopping 30 cubic feet of storage behind the second row. Very, very usable space. Even got little cubbies down here to throw things. And you can pop that up for a little bit of under floor storage if you have something maybe fragile, a poster or painting, I don't know what you're transporting in your ID.4. Then you fold the back seats down and you have 64 cubic feet. That's very impressive. Let's go see what's under the hood, shall we? All right, so under the hood of the ID.4, you have the one car today with no frunk of any kind. No storage up here, just electronics and maintenance items, and I guess you don't really need it because of how spacious the back is, but that is something to note. This is not a car you get a frunk with for an EV. All right, getting in the Mustang Mach-E. First of all, you're greeted with these amazing animations on these giant screens, which is a lot of fun. This is interior that actually really impressed me when I first discovered it. It just has such a good feel to it. Like the steering wheel is one of my favorites today, just with how it feels, and no piano black. There's actually like no piano black in this entire car, except for like the rim around the display, which is not a touch point. So that's a huge perk in my book. I know some people just don't care about piano black, but I think it's overused, honestly. But this is a really well sorted out and laid out interior. And it actually, unlike some of the other cars, has an actual power button. So we'll get this fired up here. And it greets you with a strange noise that I'm actually not a fan of at all. I'm pretty over that sound, but that's just from spending enough time driving it. I'll go here. And the screen itself, though, is really quite intuitive. Nothing's too far deep within the menus. And this has the same type of thing as the ID.4, where you can set auto at high, medium, or low fan speeds. Always great. But yeah, nothing's too hard to get to with this actual interface. The controls and settings, there's a lot of actual like settings and stuff that you can adjust and really set it up exactly how you want it. Of course, you have the drive modes there and driver assistance. All that's configured within this. And even CarPlay, it doesn't look quite right with this because it just kind of takes up this part of the screen, so it leaves other parts down below. One thing the Mach-E kept that many people have left is an actual volume knob, and I love this. It feels a little cheap, but it seems to work just fine, and I hope it doesn't like break soon. It's not I don't want it to be a fast like wear item, but it just floats above the screen there, and I really do like that. The dial to select gear is similar to the volume knob, just kind of sits here where you can put it into reverse, which gives you 360 camera, nice backup camera, or of course neutral and drive. And then you have your electronic parking brake. You've got usable cup holders down here, a wireless phone charger, a bit more storage space, USB-C and USB-A, so they're kind of letting you gradually convert your cables over if you want to. Now, what else is interesting is the rest of the materials. This is kind of a matte finish, almost looks like a metallic version of a carbon fiber. You have nice leather, and then you have this like, I don't know, fabric-y screen, which actually covers up the B&O sound system. The speakers are hidden back in there, and I really like that implementation. The fans, all the vents are like in between, so it kind of leaves this floating above. And speaking of floating, this display is floating above the steering wheel. This screen up here is pretty intuitive as well, and both these screens can be in either like day or night mode, so there's a lot of configuration there. Speaking of floating again, this center console type thing, it's an armrest and it just floats literally like just empty space, and a lot of stuff you can fit in the cubby below it. And there's more storage beneath this floating center right here. So lots of floating design elements. And I've actually found this to be a very intuitive and friendly interior for almost anything. I've never had issues throwing things somewhere, storing stuff. There's door pockets. There's so many different things. One of the weird things though is the door handle. You can kind of see right here, you have to pull back on this tab to actually open the door. So that's slightly different from many other manufacturers, but it works. So the seats themselves are really quite comfortable. I would happily road trip this as well, other than the charging curve perhaps. But let's take a look at the back seats, see how those are. So getting in the back of the Mustang Mach-E, very spacious. Yeah, I could just fall asleep right here. I forgot to point out in the front, you actually have contrasting stitching with the black interior, and that actually matches kind of the grabber blue exterior, which is a great little, just a little tidbit of design. But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic place to sit. I have plenty of headroom. Again, the glass ends right before my head, so Tesla's the only one that really has the glass that goes all the way into the headroom. But really not a concern of mine. Speaking of the glass, it's nice to enjoy it from the back seat. That is one thing I like about all these cars today, is just the glass roofs. I mean, that is something that makes the back feel so much less like hugging. So yeah, the same type of materials as the front, a nice like speaker grill in the door with the B&O logo for the B&O sound system, USB Type-C and A ports back here, although only one of each. So depending on which kids are back here and what devices they need to charge, that could be a fighting match. But great space, and this one actually opens up right into the back. So let's go take a look at the back storage, see how it looks. So coming around to the back of the Mach-E, there we go. Power liftgate, which is great, and ample storage. It's 29 cubic feet of storage back here, which is really fantastic. And then when you fold the seats down, 60 cubic feet. So very usable space. I have personally fit many things in the back of a Mach-E. I actually picked up like dozens of boxes for moving. So really great power trunk to close. And let's go take a look at the front, see what's up there. So underneath the front of the Mach-E, you actually have some decent storage. A few cubic feet, maybe 2 or 3, if I remember correctly, and even cup holders. So it's literally meant to like kind of tailgate out of. And there's actually a drain plug down there, so you could fill this thing with ice, fill it with drinks, just have a good time out on the field or a ball game, pretty much wherever. It's a fun car to hang out of. And don't forget that cool Mustang underneath the hood there. That's a nice little touch. Getting into the Model Y, this is also a very comfortable car. I would do plenty of road trips in this. And yeah, the first thing is the key. Now, this may not be your normal key, as far as normal cars are considered, but even with a Tesla owner, for most Tesla owners, your phone is your key. I mean, if you have your phone and your profile logged in and everything, that's the key to your car. But if a guest is taking your car, or in this case, one of our viewers lent us this, you have this little plastic, literally like a little credit card, and you just tap it on the center console, and then it'll let you drive. Yeah, but the Tesla Model Y, stop beeping, there we go. Tesla Model Y is simplicity and minimalism at the extreme. In some people's cases, too far. There is literally no driver display in front of the steering wheel. The steering wheel itself has 2 little things, and that's it. No other crazy buttons. Literally everything is done between these 2 stalks, and then these buttons are kind of dynamic based on what you're doing on the screen, and then the screen shows everything. While you're out and driving, the speedometer is right here. All your car controls are here, even your climate control, that's all within here. And what's really interesting also, in the spirit of minimalism, no vents anywhere that are at least discernible by the eye. Of course, you can figure out pretty quickly it's coming from this slit. And what you can do is actually control where it's flowing and split it around you or aim it right at you. Both driver and passenger have individual splits. So that's a pretty cool way to do climate control. As far as materials, that is a little less premium, I would say. It's definitely not the new like Model S, Model X quality in here, but it still is a nice feeling steering wheel. It doesn't feel overtly cheap, but it also doesn't feel extremely premium. And as one of the most expensive cars we are reviewing today, that could be a severe downside for you. For me, not so much. I care so much about the technology, and this has a lot of it. For once, when you are charging, you could actually come here and just sit and go to web or entertainment or toy box. Entertainment, you've got all your streaming platforms, arcade games you can play. They have thought that through as far as charging experience. They know you might just not want to sit there and dabble on your phone the whole time, although many people do. So you have plenty of things to entertain you. I have sat and charged and watched YouTube. Good time. Yeah, there are weird door handles on this for once. So if you remember, the Mach-E has the weird little like paddle thing you pull back. That's actually the wrong way to open this door. You technically can. There's a latch here that you will open, and that's like the mechanical override, which will force the door open. Now Tesla warns you not to use it over and over again because it could damage the windows because they're frameless. The proper way is actually use this button here, and that just unlocks the door and lets it open. Otherwise, very, very minimalist. You have a lot of piano black here, which was actually replaced with the newest models. But as of 2020 with this car, still piano black, a bit too much if you ask me. But that opens up. There is a aftermarket, or maybe they finally made it default, a Qi charger for your phones right there. USB ports down there. Lots of storage space under there. Cup holders right. You have to close it very softly, otherwise it'll just force itself back open. Cup holders here, lots of space under here, a little tray, nice and felt lined. I really like that. And the seats themselves are fantastic. Let me see. Yeah, and the seats are all heated. There are no ventilated seats in here, but the front, even the rear, and even this middle rear are all heated seats, tri-level, so you can just turn them all on if you want to. So really a simple car to use, honestly. All the settings are laid out here pretty simply. I have no complaints. I've spent a long time with Model 3, which is essentially the same as Model Y, and I really like it. Great driving position, great visibility, and great performance. What more could you ask for? Not really a premium interior, but just depends what you're looking for. But that's enough of the front. Let's see how the rear seats are comfort-wise. So the rear of the Model Y, not the nice solid door sound you would hope for, but pretty comfortable actually. I could do road trips back here, and ample headroom. I mean, the most of all these cars today, and that is because the window just continues all the way back and doesn't end until it's above, like behind where your head is. So that's strange that so many other cars don't do that feature panoramic moonroofs. But otherwise, it's great. Very minimalist. Again, hardly any controls. You have two little USB-C ports and a vent right here. Otherwise, it's not a whole lot going on back here. So there you have it, the rear of the Model Y. And you can have direct access to the trunk, unlike the Model 3. So let's take a look back there and see how much space you have. All right, so for the rear of the Model Y, let's open this power lift gate. It is a little slow, but ample storage space back here. So the official number is 68 cubic feet with the seats folded down, including the front. So to deduce that, we can think it's probably about 33, 34 cubic feet back here, which is a lot of space. You do have deep cubbies on the sides here in case you want to store, I don't know, glass jugs of milk or something breakable. Otherwise, it's very simple, normal trunk. Power button right there. And now pop in the cabin with me really quick while I show you the button for the front. It's not actually a pull lever, but it's actually right here. So you can open the front or the trunk just from the screen right there. Oh, there we go. So it does not actually do the flop open, which is a little deceiving. Let's go take a look under there. So there we go. The biggest frunk of the day. Roughly, I don't know, 3 cubic feet. It's hard to tell, and we couldn't find any exact numbers, but definitely big enough to carry enough for like a weekend trip maybe if you pack light. But yeah, very usable space. I'm impressed with that.
Guys, you join us here at the charging station where there are a whole bunch of these ChargePoint CPE 250 units. We've DC fast charged all of these cars. So the ID.4 on the end just hit 80%. Jordan's working on unplugging it. The Model Y, we Chatamo charged. It's unplugged. You can see available. If someone was here waiting to charge, we'd of course move the car, but very rare use station here. The Polestar 2 is still charging. It's almost at 80%, and the Mach-E just hit 80. Now, the idea here is, you know, we're not all leaving at the same exact percent. BMSs can get out of whack. The idea is to reset the the first idea is let's warm all the cars up DC charging. We drove them hard on a back road, so we kind of want them all around 80%. So, you know, one isn't at 20%. It has to compensate for low pack voltage with huge current, so we're hopefully not gaming the system. The idea is to have this be as accurate as possible. So we have each car around 80 to 82% state of charge as sitting. Then we are going to head out onto the road, reset the trip odometers, and we're not going to be doing a range test or efficiency test. I've actually range tested all of these cars at the time of the recording. Just the ID.4 all-wheel drive is left, but that will be done before that car goes back. So at this moment in time, We're not looking at the overall range of the vehicles. We've already tested them. What we're doing is just to look at to see who is the most and least efficient on the same day, same stretch of road. So we're going to be targeting 70 miles an hour. With this many cars, it's going to be hard to have them all drive the same, but we'll drive for a half hour, 40 minutes on the same stretch of road, pull over, and then look at the results. By the way, climate controls will be set to automatic 72 degrees. It's a very low wind day, and it's about, I would say, 75 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Just in terms of the spec on these cars and wheels, the Mach-E 4X here is on the, I want to say the 20-inch wheels, sorry, the 19-inch wheels. Excuse the combustion noise going by there. So these are on the 19s. The Polestar 2 is on the 20s. You can option this car with a smaller wheel. It's hard to get, again, all the exact same configuration, but if this car does well with the big wheels, that'll be kind of impressive. The Model Y is on the Aero wheels, and then the ID.4 is on the larger 20-inch wheels here. So we've set tire pressures to manufacturer suggested pressures on each of the cars. I need to double check the Mach-E actually. And then we will head out and see how they do. This one's at 79%, it's the last one we're waiting for. We should be good to go here in a moment. So we're all just doing a little driver's meeting here. So in terms of car setup, we'll reset the trip computers as soon as we pull out. If you guys don't know how to do that, let me know. We're going to target gentle accelerations, normal modes, so comfort mode, air conditioning on, 72 auto. If you have an eco mode in your car, like whisper mode, and ID.4 has an eco mode, you're more than welcome to use it. I don't think Polestar does. I think that's just standard driving. So that will go in standard mode. And we're just going to target 70 miles per hour. We're going to kind of get on the road, drive the same way. We don't want to tailgate because that's an advantage. We were talking about that. So leave space between you and the car in front. Avoid hard accelerations because that will create heat loss and less effective results. And it's never going to be fully scientific in the real world, especially with traffic out there. But will be kind of interesting to see if there's any big disparities. And we'll just have to rely on the internal computers, which isn't totally accurate either. So it's a close enough kind of test. What do you think?
It's just, we'll have some fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit of data. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it'll give us a good idea. All the cars are done. Polestar, I think, is at 80%. So unplug that one. And yeah, we'll reset all the trip computers and rock and roll. And off we go now. Let's do it. e-tron just rolling up as we're pulling out. That's awesome. So here we go. I guess I'll lead the way in the ID.4. I've just reset all of our trip computer. I have climate set at 72. We got our camera car, the rear wheel drive ID.4. Hell yeah, this is awesome. It's only a 20-minute straight line down to EA, so it's not the most accurate of tests, but it's nearing the end of the day. People have to go home, and well, it wouldn't be a good electric comparison if we didn't compare a little bit of Jordan's phone disconnected, a little bit of the efficiency between the cars. Look at that view in the mirror. Holy smokes, that is cool. That is cool. Let's do it. And Alyssa set the lights to purple in this car. Off we go then. You guys have been with me many times on our normal loop, but that's not what we're doing. Just tons of EVs around. Gotta love it. Now finished up our loop. We're actually at an Electrify America DC fast charging station. This is a brand new one here in Loveland, Colorado. We don't need to choose charge the car, but we chose this location just because electric cars, charging stations, you gotta love it. So we've now driven the cars about 21, 22 miles at the same time. We all pulled into the parking lot at the same time. We all left at the same time. It's never truly scientific, but the spread is amazing in terms of efficiency. We had climate control set where they needed. Both the Mach-E and the ID.4 were in whisper mode and efficient mode respectively. Both the Model Y and the Polestar 2 don't have an efficiency setting. So let me walk you through from least to worst, or that's the same thing, from worst to best in terms of efficiency. This one right here, Polestar 2, which arguably is the lowest car, 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. And honestly, we were well under 70 miles per hour a lot of the trip. So that's a little bit disappointing. However, this car is on The performance wheels and tires, it would have done better probably if we didn't do the performance, which is interesting because this car actually did pretty well on my 70-mile-per-hour loop. I don't know, Timon even felt like he was cheating. He was hanging back and looked like he was drafting in this thing, but he couldn't quite get it for the win. Then the next one up is actually a tie. The Mustang Mach-E and the Volkswagen ID.4 all-wheel drive Pro S with the big wheels both did 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, and that is kind of a shock. I actually thought that the Mach-E was going to do a little bit better, but this has a larger battery, more weight to pull around. But then at the same time, the ID.4 is a little bit taller and less weight, so I guess it balances itself out. Not sure, but 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And then here comes the Tesla just smoking us all at 4.1. Truly insane. Jordan behind the camera had the Tesla. Was it fun to drive?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so the most efficient, longest range car here, and yeah, and a totally different charging network. So I'd say the Model Y won that challenge. But now we get into safety. So I want to talk, you know, all these cars are 5-star crash safety test rated. They're all obviously focused on safety. Each of the manufacturers will tell you we focus on safety as top priority. And honestly, we're not going to crash them all together, although that would be really cool just to see which one destroys the most. But just a brief overview of my impressions of the active safety features on the car, what's standard, what's not in terms of driver assistance. So Model Y and ID.4 are the only two cars here that come standard with driver assistance. Again, remember, the ID.4 is the cheapest one. A rear-wheel drive's 39 grand on this thing, 39.9 before destination. It's really 41. 40,000, maybe 41,100. I don't know. It's cheap for what you get. You get standard adaptive cruise control, lane centering, rear cross traffic alert. It doesn't let you bump into stuff at low speed. It actually just happened to my dad the other day. He drives one of these and he was backing into an Electrify America charger, got distracted, and the car stopped before he hit the post. Really cool technology. I know the Mach-E has this as well. The Tesla does not have that. This will just let you crash into stuff at low speed. So in terms of driver assistance, this car will drive itself, or it will not drive itself, excuse me. It will assist you in driving down the highway wonderfully. It does great lane centering. And if you're interested more in that, I've driven an ID.4 across the country on Out of Spec Motoring. You can see that video. The Model Y has Tesla's autopilot system, which we've tested almost every version of. This particular car has enhanced autopilot, but this is a vision-based, again, the new cars don't come with radar, a vision-based driver assistance system that Tesla claims will be full self-driving one day. If you look at how the cars are driving today, that could not be farther from the truth. I think it's actually extremely dangerous to see them on the roads. We've made a whole video about it, plenty of articles out there on the internet referencing our video. In terms of what you use autopilot for, though, which is highway driving, it's incredible. It's one of the best systems ever because it does really good lane centering, great lane changes in this particular car, and overall super, super great to go on a road trip in a Tesla. I've also road tripped Model 3 and Model Y many times. You can take a look at those. And then we get to the Mustang Mach-E. I don't know, let me ask Patrick really quick. If you get a Mach-E base without Copilot, does it do forward collision warning?
Yes.
Okay, so forward collision stuff is standard.
Yes. Just not the lane centering.
Right,
and
not the
360
assistance.
camera.
Right, it makes sense. So Mach-E does have all the safety stuff as standard, what it sounds like. So it'll slam on the brakes if you're about to hit someone. It has rear cross traffic. It has the rear braking assist, which is awesome to see that included on the car at no charge. However, if you want to have lane centering, which is, you know, where it stays in the middle of the lane, and adaptive cruise control, you need to option Copilot 360, which is a prep pack. It does eye tracking now with Blue Cruise. I've had a chance to experience it. It's actually pretty neat. You don't even need to put your hands on the wheel. By the way, this is an interesting thing. One of the most important things, I mean, I could spend a 3-hour video just on driver assistance of, you know, using a driver assistance system is how do you interact with the system? How do you tell the system that you're there, alive, and paying attention? Well, in the Mach-E with Blue Cruise on pre-mapped roads, you'll be able just to use your eyes as long as you're looking forwards. The car won't ask you to touch the steering wheel. The Tesla needs torque into the steering wheel, so you put some effort in, and that tells it you're there. I actually don't like this system so much where you need to put effort in, because sometimes new owners especially will put too much effort in, pull out of the system, and it's a little bit herky-jerky, if I'm honest, and it's not the safest. The ID.4 uses a haptic steering wheel, so as long as your hands touch the wheel and it can feel your skin, it's not haptic, capacitive, excuse me, I always get that one mixed up, you guys know, then it knows you're there. I think that's a pretty good implementation. The Polestar is similar to the Tesla, where it requires torque in the steering wheel, but unlike the others, this one does have the collision safety stuff standard, but if you want any of the driver assistance, again, it's an upcharge package onto the vehicle. So overall, I think, you know, just in terms of standard assistance for the price, the ID.4 takes the cake there. Tesla, I'd say, probably has the best and most competent lane centering. And overall, you can option very similar levels of driver assistance. I'd say there's really no difference in between them in the actual use case. There's minutia, but if I'm taking a long trip, each one of these cars helps me down the highway with its driver assistance just the same. We had actually planned to sit in the car and do this all together, but as you can tell, the sun is going down. Look at how beautiful that sunset is over there. Absolutely gorgeous. And now it's time to share our final thoughts. We've had an incredible full day of testing. I want to thank everyone involved. We're actually going to get all of their opinions. Some people went home, but we have most of everyone here as to what they would choose. And in my opinion, all of these cars are really good in their own ways. I mean, I think, you know, Tesla's been in this game longer than almost anyone. I've been a huge supporter of the company, a huge fan, and I really think, you know, their charging infrastructure is seamless. The buying experience is great, except when you have to wait a year to get your car. You know, there's a huge demand for them, and there's total justifiable reason as to why. I think the Mach-E is probably a really amazing car. It's actually great to see an American automaker take such a huge effort towards electrification, put their whole company behind electrification, and that's their first model, really, aside from the Focus Electric a long time ago, that just embodies the Ford spirit. So you have to love that. The Polestar 2, well, that's just a shredder. When you get that thing up a back road, very few cars are going to be able to keep up with it. For being as heavy as it is, it's so fun to drive. It's so Swedish, all the little details inside, all the way up to the little Polestar logo showing on the dash. And yeah, it's just amazing inside, just directing traffic here. And then the ID.4, I think, is a car that doesn't necessarily excel in any category. It doesn't have the most amount of range. It doesn't have the fastest charging. It doesn't have the quickest acceleration. It's not the quickest on a back road, but what it is it's the easiest to live with every day. And even regardless of the price, I think it's the one I would get in and drive home, but it's significantly cheaper than all of the other cars by thousands of dollars. So, I don't know really which one's the best. I think it's really up to you and to where you see yourself driving. A lot of people will only choose the Tesla because of the charging network. A lot of people will only choose the Polestar because of the performance nature. A lot of people only choose the Mustang because it has such a great brand behind it and a great service network built out across the country. For me, though, I think it's the ID.4 that I would take home. So you heard my thoughts that I think I would personally choose the ID.4 out of the bunch. Polestar 2 is really good too, just because it's so great and fun to drive. I would like to have some of our team who helped shoot the video today share what they would choose, because everyone's been able to drive pretty much everything.
I'm Gary. I think I would choose the Model Y because of the charging network. I'm Timon. I would probably choose a Polestar because of driving dynamics.
I'm Drew. I've got to go Model Y myself as well.
Why?
Charging network, combination of performance and daily drivability. It's just the best.
Hey, I'm Jeff. I would take the Polestar 2. Love the Swedish styling inside and happen to have a Volvo in the garage.
I'm Patrick, obviously biased for the Mach-E. That's what I would choose. I love the styling and it's fun to drive.
I'm Liv. I am also biased. I would pick the Mach-E for aesthetics, but I do love the ID.4. The cabin is just nice. It's really nice.
And
So
there you
both.
have it, guys. Oh, did you end or are you still going?
I'm still going.
Oh, good. And there you have it. That's the end of the video. We went through some different categories. If you want to see more videos like this, let us know. We won't cram it into an 8-hour day. We'll actually spend time going through and testing multiple cars. With so many EVs coming to the market, it's important to show you all of the pros and cons of each car. And well, there's our lineup for the day. Hope you enjoyed. Wait, we can't end the video. Jordan, which would you choose?
100% Polestar 2.
Really?
Again, the Scandinavian styling, just the color choice of the brake calipers.
But what if it was
interior-
XC40 Recharge, which is the car we really should have used here?
That is probably what I would pick instead, because
Really?
the useful hatchback of the XC40 Recharge. But I just love the Polestar and Volvo styling, the infotainment, the like comfort and level in the what materials on the inside. It's my favorite place to sit.
I think if we could get XC40 Recharge with Olnings and Brembos and shred as hard as that.
Name a better duo, I'll wait.
Thank you guys for watching. See ya.